Let's suppose you are standing in front of a table. On the table, there is a single grain of sand. You look at it and answer easily. One grain of sand is not a heap. Now imagine adding one more grain. 2 grains of sand are still not a heap. You add another grain, then another, then another. At no point does the change feel dramatic. 1 grain does not make a heap. Adding a single grain does not seem capable of creating a heap, so you continue. If 1 grain is not a heap, and adding 1 grain never turns something into a heap, then it seems reasonable to conclude that no number of grains can ever form a heap. But that conclusion is absurd. You know that heaps exist. At some point, a pile of sand clearly becomes a heap. Yet when you try to identify the exact moment this happens, there is no clear answer. If you point to a specific grain and say, "This grain made it a heap," the claim feels arbitrary. Why that grain and not the one before it? This is the Sorites paradox. It exposes a problem hidden inside ordinary language. Words like heap, tall, rich, old, or bald do not have sharp boundaries. They work well in everyday conversation, but they resist precise definition. The paradox appears when we apply strict logical rules to concepts that were never designed to be exact. Logic asks for clear thresholds. Language offers gradual change. If no single grain creates a heap, logic suggests a heap should never exist. But experience tells us otherwise. Some try to solve the paradox by drawing an artificial line. They declare that a heap begins at a certain number of grains, but that line is chosen for convenience, not truth. Others try to abandon classical logic altogether. They allow for degrees of truth instead of simple true or false. But that changes the foundations of reasoning. Every solution demands a sacrifice. Either we accept vague concepts that logic cannot fully capture, or we redesign logic to handle vagueness. The paradox shows that the problem is not sand. The problem is precision. Human language evolved to handle the real world, not to satisfy strict logical consistency. When gradual change meets exact reasoning, contradiction appears. The Sorites paradox reminds us that not all problems arise from complexity. Some arise from things that change too slowly to notice. The paradox ends there.